tonight.
It's 1 minute to midnight on that doomsday clock, and we need to act now.
A dramatic start to COP26.
So I ask to you, what must we say to our people?
Where the violators...
Every country needs to be serious about urgent action in this decade.
And the victims of climate change meet.
Climate change affects us all. Rich, poor, developed, and developing states.
Activists...
Remember whatever the they're doing inside there. We're sick and tired of it, and we're gonna make the change.
And the experts.
If working apart, we are a force powerful enough to destabilize our planet, surely working together, we are powerful enough to save it.
Tonight, episode 2 of a 6-part CNC3 special series.
For those who have eyes to see, for those who have ears to listen, and for those who have a heart to feel, 1.5 is what we need to survive.
Perhaps the most famous man to come out of Scotland, where the UN Climate Change Conference is happening right now, is James Bond. And in his action-packed movies, Bond would usually swoop in and save the day. The crisis at the moment calls for a James Bond, only he's a fictional character, and we are depending on the world's politicians to save us. Over the last 2 days, we've heard from scores of world leaders who have made pledges and talked of a new path towards a greener future in this world, including Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. And Trinidad and Tobago's voice is also a very important one in this conversation. In fact, it's more important than many other voices because of this country's high dependency on the oil and gas sector, its slow transition away from fossil fuels, and the high numbers of greenhouse gases emissions emanating from this country of 1.4 million people per capita. So what Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley had to say on Tuesday at the UN Climate Change Conference is actually very important. In a speech that lasted roughly 7 minutes, Dr. Keith Rowley did not gloss over the country's dependence on oil and gas, but made sure to make it clear his government is willing, ready, and already moving towards a greener economy.
Trinidad and Tobago is a small island developing state already experiencing the effects of climate change.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley addressing the Climate Change Conference in Glasgow as Trinidad and Tobago grapples with the cause and effects of its own carbon footprint. It was only 2 years ago the World Bank's Global Carbon Project placed TNT as the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. Before that, the country had consistently placed in the top 10. But TNT is also the victim of its own violations. Radical changes in weather patterns have been detected, and unprecedented coastal erosions are moving citizens on the edge inland.
As an economy largely based on oil and gas and petrochemicals, we in Trinidad and Tobago recognize our responsibility in transitioning over reasonable and manageable time to net zero.
The Prime Minister reiterated his government's commitment to transitioning to solar energy.
We are in the process of establishing the largest utility-scale solar renewable energy project in the Caribbean, with a capacity of 112 megawatts, accounting for 10% of our power needs, and we plan to increase this complement to 30% by 2030.
As the Prime Minister spoke across the Atlantic, Energy Minister Stuart Young met with Lightsource BP Chief Executive Nick Boyle to discuss solar park projects in Trinidad and possibly Tobago.
We are pursuing measures to facilitate investments in green hydrogen, to provide green feedstock to our vibrant petrochemical industry. We intend to explore the use of industry-generated carbon dioxide in possible carbon sequestration projects.
The Prime Minister also touched on his government's efforts to phase in electric cars and moving society to a greener way of living.
Let's work for survival of ours and all species. Let's not choose extinction. Mr. President, I thank you.
Like the rest of world leaders in Glasgow, the Prime Minister returns to the reality back home. So is Dr. Rowley's optimism a realistic reach? Coming up, Chief Executive Officer of the Energy Chamber, Dr. Thackwray Driver, joins us to explore if this decade could make a difference in Trinidad and Tobago. Next.
As an economy largely based on oil and gas and petrochemicals, we in Trinidad and Tobago recognize our responsibility in transitioning over reasonable and manageable time to net zero.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley exuding optimism at the UN Climate Change Conference that Trinidad and Tobago can become more energy efficient and transition to a greener economy. It's important to point out that this has been a problem plaguing many administrations in this country for many decades, and the carbon footprint has only gotten worse over time now. Now we are at a breaking point. Here to explore more on this is Dr. Thackwray Driver. Dr. Driver is the Energy Chamber Chief Executive Officer. Dr. Driver, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said at the UN Climate Change Conference that Trinidad and Tobago will be moving quicker towards more renewable sources. Now, when we look at projects like Project Lara, what's taking us so long? It's been spoken about for a long time, but what's taking so long for it to get off the ground?
Well, I think essentially that's taking a while because it's a new project. The first time we're doing this, a major solar project. I think most countries, with their first project, it takes a bit longer to get all the regulation right. It's a little different from what we've done in the past with gas-fired power stations. So I think it's just taking a bit of time for all of the legal niceties of the agreements to be put in place between the project developers and Tech. And so I think that is what's holding things back a little bit. But I think that clearly the political commitment is there to make it happen. It was good to see the Prime Minister making that commitment in front of world leaders. And I think that hopefully the project will now progress quickly. And this is the first, which takes us to about 10% of the generation capacity. Commitment being made for us to move quickly towards 30% overall. And I think that is good, and we should just push that as hard as we can and move as quickly as we can towards that target.
You're right, 30% by the year 2030. Do you see that realistically happening?
Yeah, I think that's very achievable for Trinidad and Tobago. We're actually very well positioned to bring in renewable energy onto our grid because of the fact we have gas-fired power stations. We actually have excess capacity, so there's more capacity to generate electricity than there is demand, and that means that you can bring renewables on, which are intermittent renewables. So because obviously solar only produces electricity when the sun is shining, wind produces it when the wind is blowing, and so you need to have that backup supply available there. We have that in Trinidad. So we can very quickly bring renewable energy into the grid without having to worry about storage, which is an issue for a lot of other countries. So we're very well positioned to do it, and I think we should be moving aggressively to bring the renewable energy into the grid.
From what you've seen so far, Dr. Driver, in Scotland, how is this COP26 summit going to impact the local energy sector?
Well, clearly, I mean, I think that what you're seeing is the pressure for the energy transition is only going to increase every year when there are negotiations, countries making commitments. The pressure on us to be part of that transition is going to continue, and we just have to be very clear that there is a global energy transition taking place. We have some challenges in Trinidad and Tobago because of that, but we also have tremendous opportunities as well to be part of that transition, and just need to grab those and move as fast as we possibly can. I think we need to, my main message is that we need to accelerate the process of change, but we have a lot of opportunity to be part of this transition.
When you listen to world leaders speak on that global stage, realistically, the first to go seemingly will be coal. Do you see a realistic horizon beyond oil and gas?
Well, I think what you're seeing clearly is that coal is a major source of electricity around the world, particularly in some of the major economies in Asia, in India, and in China. Coal is a very large part of the energy mix, and still in a lot of places in Europe as well, in Germany and in Poland. Coal is still a major source of electricity, and moving coal away from coal is the first priority for the world, because it's the most polluting, highest amount of greenhouse gases from all of the fossil fuels, and there's a lot of opportunity there for switching from coal to natural gas, which is I think why we'll see the continuation of natural gas being a major source of energy. The electrification of transport, which is moving very rapidly, particularly in Europe, that obviously creates more demand for electricity. We obviously want to meet that not from coal-fired power stations, but from renewable energy with natural gas as the backup. That electrification of transport will see demand likely to decrease over the coming decades for crude oil, because the major source of energy for transport is oil, and as transport networks become electric, the demand for crude oil will likely to decline. This is not going to happen tomorrow, but it is going to happen over the coming decades. So so coal first, then oil, natural gas, a bit of a longer time horizon.
Yeah, we're less than 2 months before heading into 2022, Dr. Driver. What steps should this country be taking right now to prepare for the changes that are coming?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things we have to be doing. Obviously, that bringing the renewable energy sources onto the grid is one of them. We need to be working consistently to reduce the wastage of energy within our economy. So energy efficiency has to be absolutely crucial. We are likely to see higher electricity pricing in Trinidad and Tobago, but that means the tariff goes up per unit of electricity that you have to buy. But everybody in the country has an opportunity to reduce their energy use just through simple measures. So businesses need to really put a big focus on being more energy efficient. We will see, I think, the electric vehicle policy coming into place. So we'll see more electric cars coming onto the road. The continuation of the CNG program with retrofitting maxi taxis and other vehicles. To move from imported diesel and gasoline to CNG. So those are sort of things which are in progress at the moment. I think where the big opportunity area is with greening our petrochemical sector with hydrogen. So green or blue hydrogen. So to explain what those two things are. So at the moment, Trinidad is a major consumer of hydrogen. That's what goes into our petrochemical sector. That hydrogen comes from natural gas. At the moment, so natural gas is the feedstock, which creates, which is used to create the hydrogen. But you can also create hydrogen from water through electrolysis, which is what green hydrogen is. So if you have electricity from a renewable energy source, you can convert water into hydrogen, and then you feed that into the existing ammonia plants, and you create a green petrochemical. So this is something which there's an active project to try to do this. On the drawing boards, it's got good financial backing. They're doing the engineering design work. They're putting in place the agreements to buy the electricity and to sell the green hydrogen. So that is in progress at the moment. Major opportunity for the country. Blue hydrogen now is the other thing that you'll hear about. That is where you're still producing hydrogen from natural gas like we do at the moment. But the CO2 which you produce, you sequester into geological formations. So you pump it under the ground into old oil reservoirs, and it becomes over time it becomes part of the rocks and is stored there underground for over geological timeframes. So that is the other thing which the Prime Minister mentioned in his speech: the carbon capture and sequestration from industry. That then creates again a low carbon petrochemical product. And that's really how we need to be moving to create a new Point Lisas 2.0, as we've been calling it. It's a new future for Point Lisas, using a greener feedstock to produce the petrochemicals that the world will continue to need, but with a lower carbon footprint.
Dr. Driver, are we taking too long, though, to see projects like the NewGen project get off the ground?
Well, I think that these things do take time. They're new developments. So yes, I would, of course, I think everybody would like to see these accelerating to happen faster, but it does sometimes take a bit of time for these things, for new projects, innovative projects that to get off the ground. But that is I think the key message that the Energy Chamber would give is that yes, we're making the right progress, but we just need to keep doing it faster.
All right, Dr. Thackwray, Driver, happy Diwali to you and to your family. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Happy Diwali as well.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, Dr. Thackwray Driver, the Energy Chamber Chief Executive Officer, talking to us on COP26 Now or Never. Coming up after the break, coastal erosion is hitting Trinidad and Tobago's coastal areas very hard. In fact, it's so hard that many of our citizens who live on the coasts are now being forced to move from coastal areas and head inland. That's going to cause quite a gathering. Coming up next, we've got a coastal erosion engineer talking to us. Climate change has arrived in Trinidad and Tobago, and more than just arriving, it's settling for the long haul. It's making itself at home in our country. And it's not just in the heavier rainfalls that you now have to endure or the hotter days that you live through. Trinidad and Tobago's coastlines are being affected and eroded at a rapid rate. And we have a lot of people in our country that live on the coastlines. They'll be forced to move, they'll be forced to relocate. And where will they relocate? Wouldn't be on other coastlines, it'll have to be inland. We could see a major shift of living inland. I have the pleasure of welcoming coastal engineer Nyoka Sinanan to the show. Now, ahead of this conversation, our South reporter Radhika De Silva visited the coastline in Moruga to file this report.
Bereft and broken, this is what is left of Paul Ratton's home. Here at Kalmapas village in Guayaguayari, the entire area is crumbling into the sea. Every day, these waves batter the eastern coastlines, damaging properties. And in this area alone, more than 25 homes have already been lost to the sea. Ratton says dredging was done near the Guayaguayari jetty, accelerating erosion. Yet little help has come to him and his neighbors.
Yeah, it was a real nice place, man. Real nice place. Real nice place to enjoy having the moonlight and different things. But now, you see the place? Everything gone through. You have no house. Real hard. I just had to, I was living on my little savings and thing. I thought they would do something, give me some part to build a house or some kind of things. I said, well, I see they're taking on nobody.
Another resident whose home is also on the brink of collapse says urgent repairs are needed on the coast.
As you can see how bad it is, you can't access the beach anymore. My neighbor has lost his house. After this house is my house, right? So it's like I am next in line. So unless something is done ASAP, I would end up just like this house in the corner here. I would also lose my house.
Meanwhile, in the southwestern peninsula, more than 30 homes have disappeared into the sea, including one owned by KAYSO PERSAD. Like Ratton, he too was never compensated or relocated.
Well, at least some form of compensation or some form of insurance should be given to those who have lost properties.
PERSAD says his new home can also collapse at any time. Neighbor Irving RAMPAUL is facing a similar predicament.
Dangerous, like because at night when the high tide coming, bang against the wall there and my bed and whole house will be vibrated.
Councillor for CEDROS TEELUCKSINGH says the Superior Regional Corporation has been trying to assist the affected villagers.
We continue through the Superior Regional Corporation to request recommendations and funding for assisting those residents that have been affected from coastal erosion within the Southwest Peninsula.
CNC3 News contacted Works Minister Nyoka Sinanan, who says several projects are underway to curb coastal erosion, but he notes these projects are expensive. These include projects in Mayaro, Guayaguayari, Macarip, Matlot, Capdeville, Vista Bella, and Little Rocky Bay in Tobago. Director of the Coastal Protection Unit, Kerry Shepherd, says already 12 coastal projects have been completed to stem the rapid erosion of the coasts.
Well, thank you so much, Radhika, for your great reporting on this story. And I have the pleasure of welcoming coastal engineer Nyoka Sinanan to the show. Nyoka, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Ryan. It's nice to be here.
So can we start by talking a little bit about how much sea level rise have we actually seen in Trinidad and Tobago, maybe over the last few decades?
Well, in particular, the coastline is a highly dynamic environment due to various coastal processes occurring. The ecosystem factors, as well as, human activities that occur there. Globally, coastal areas would encompass a significant percentage of the population and their livelihoods. But recently, there has been, increased pressures that are being placed on coastal areas. The unsustainable use of resources, the increase in pollution rates. These are just a few activities that impact coastal environments. Coastal erosion, however, refers to the loss of the coastal areas and is a natural phenomenon that is exacerbated by climate change as well as other factors. Climate change is one of the bigger issues that has been affecting coastlines worldwide on a very large scale. Climate change and sea level rise means an increase in the intensity and propensity of storms and thus a greater likelihood of coastal hazards such as coastal erosion and flooding. This essentially means that there's an increased threat to infrastructure that are in close proximity to the coastlines.
Wow. Which of our communities on the coasts are probably going to be most affected, if not are already being affected?
We have cases of erosion occurring along the 4 major coastlines: the North Coast, the South Coast, the East Coast, and the West Coast. So yes, coastal erosion is very real and is occurring continuously. To give an exact value would be difficult. Sorry?
But it is happening at a rapid rate, isn't it?
Correct. But to give an exact value would be difficult, as coastal erosion is very much site-specific. So it could be influenced by the location of where it's occurring, human activities, and you'd also find that Trinidad experiences seasonal erosion in some cases as well. So in so saying, some areas around Trinidad experience different rates of erosion.
Yeah, but it's part of your job to also help mitigate this erosion. So what are some, factors that you guys are taking into consideration, mitigation factors, that is?
Right. As the effects of climate change continues to worsen, so too will the impacts of the sea on the coastal areas. And coastal engineers are thus tasked with having to provide, more innovative and sustainable long-term solutions that can keep up with the effects of climate change, and in particular, sea level rise. The Coastal Protection Unit in particular has recognized the need to integrate soft or green solutions into the commonly used hard engineering solutions. Now, hard engineering solutions such as the rock armor revetments, which many of you may have seen around several sections of the coastline, are quite effective and provide immediate protection to very high-risk areas. Now, greener solutions or soft engineering solutions are basically working with the environment and what is already there to provide protection to coastlines. Nature is quite spectacular, and we as humans usually overlook what is already provided. Many of us do not and may not be able to recognize the importance of coastal vegetation, coastal mangroves, coastal coral reefs, and even seagrass beds. These are all naturally occurring solutions that provide protection to coastal erosion and assist in preventing coastal erosion and inundation.
I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that you said that, Nyoka, because I also wanted you to touch on that. There are other areas in Trinidad and Tobago that are projected to have coastal erosion at some point in the near future. That is something that you guys will have to probably take into consideration even before coastal erosion begins to happen in some areas, I guess.
So approximately 70% of Trinidad's population lies along the coastline, and approximately 8% of all public and private infrastructure by value are located immediately on the coastline. So many of the areas that the Coastal Protection Unit has targeted for works in the past have been areas where residents have been severely affected both by coastal erosion and coastal flooding. So in some cases, residents have lost their homes to the sea, whilst others had their property damaged.
Well, listen, Nyoka Sinanan, thank you so much for taking some time out to chat with us on COP26 Now or Never. We're seeing already that it's happening across Trinidad and Tobago. Happy Diwali to you and to your family. Do enjoy your holiday.
Thank you.
Nyoka Sinanan talking to us. She's a coastal engineer, and I hate to put it like this, but it's already happening around the perimeters of Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't like to call it this, but it's almost like a cancer that's beginning to eat away at the perimeters of our country and the coastlines of our country. People are already being affected. They already have to move. And this cancer is just going to keep eating inland until Trinidad and Tobago submerges. That's why this is the center of the conversation, why it's important that small island developing states like ours take climate change more seriously than bigger cities and bigger countries. We've come to the end of our second episode. Thank you so much for joining us on COP26 Now or Never. I wish you a wonderful Diwali holiday. Do have a great day. Thank you for watching. See you on Friday evening.